Well, I sure wouldn't want to meet you in a dark alley. Oh, but wait. That's exactly where we are. Oh dear. Welcome to the Abyssal Alley. Welcome back, everyone, to the Abyssal Alley, where I tell you spooky tales and try to keep you up all night. Tonight's tale is called Fire, Ashes, and Scales. Let's begin. Shay typed vigorously on the keyboard in front of her, moving her gaze from the computer screen to the sheets of paper, then back again, when a knock interrupted the blonde's progress. Permitting whomever it was to enter, a young brunette girl opened the door. Shay's assistant, Kelly, informing her that there were a couple of policemen here. Although this sort of news might have alarmed many others, when you own a mortuary and crematorium all in one, it's not all that unusual. Thus Shay told Kelly to escort them in. Kelly did as told, showing the policeman to Shay's office, before closing the door to allow the group some privacy. At this point, Shay acknowledged the police officers, as she thought they were there to tell her that there was a body on the way to the funeral home for cremation. A small smirk crossed Shay's lips for only a millisecond before she passed on a form to those officers to fill out. Once the paperwork was taken care of, the officers left. Shay finished her own paperwork, then headed downstairs to fire up the crematorium and prep her overnight room, as she'd be there for hours no matter whom the body was. The next day, dressed in a black suit, Shay presented an urn to a tearful woman standing next to a saddened man, whom thanked Shay. Respectfully, Shay whispered a welcome under her breath. When the woman requested to open the urn to see the ashes, Shay obliged, bringing them to a table in the lounge area, where the woman placed the urn. Shay opened the urn for the client, eliciting a slight surprised look, followed by the question of, shouldn't there be more? Shay responded promptly, telling the woman that there's always less than what people think. Seeming happy with this answer, the couple requested to be left alone for a moment, to which Shay told them to take their time and to only leave when they were ready. Eventually the couple left, just in time, that is, for an older woman to come storming into the mortuary, demanding to speak to the person who handled her husband's body before the burial. Of course, that would be Shay. Striding from her office, Shay attempted to calm the woman, but she was irate, claiming her husband's body had been desecrated as his arm had come off during placement of the coffin for the funeral procession. A displeased grimace flashed across Shay's face for a split second, before twisting right back into that calm persona to explain that someone's body sometimes deteriorates a little faster, especially certain body pieces, and thus sometimes you need to put on replacement pieces, especially if you're going to have an open casket funeral, just like the woman's husband's was going to be. However, all the replacement parts are noted in the final report, given to the appropriate family member, and if the woman wished, they could go over the report in Shay's office. Hearing this explanation, the old woman calmed, eventually seeing the logic in what Shay was saying, even apologizing for the intrusion. Shay assured the woman everything was forgiven, offered her condolences, and walked the old lady to her car, before watching her drive off into the sunset, only walking back into the funeral home once the car was out of sight. Another day with new challenges began. The next day, namely in the form of a young male reporter named James, who'd come regarding the latest string of complaints regarding Shay's funeral home. Sitting in one of the lobbies, Shay listened patiently to the reporter's bombardment of accusations, followed by a laundry list of questions. Yet Shay remained unfazed, eventually summing it up into a simple answer. It's a funeral home. What else do you expect? She explained how every complaint had already been handled, with reasonable explanations, which the families had happily accepted. After answering a couple more questions, the reporter seemed satisfied, and thus left, leading to a deep sigh of relief from Shay once he was out of earshot. Shay locked up for the evening, once Kelly had gone home, then made her way to the basement, where a fresh body for cremation was waiting. Changing out of her good clothes in the overnight room, Shay threw on the old green apron she kept hung by the stairs, flicked the various switches that activated the large crematorium furnace, slid on a pair of heat-resistant gloves. However, instead of turning to the body off to her right on the gurney, she turned to the left, heading straight for a large metal cabinet. Flinging open the two doors, a pair of reflective eyes peered from inside. We're going to have to be more careful, Shay whispered with a warm smile. Skulking from the darkness came a lanky, reptilian-type creature with a long neck, sharp talons, and a whipping long tail. But most distinctive were the two medium-sized bat-like wings resting by its sides. This creature's face was like the combination of a crocodile and a Komodo dragon, with small horns protruding on the top of its skull, body covered in crimson, shiny scales. Stepping aside, Shay gestured to the body lying on the gurney, causing the creature to perk up with a gurgling squawk before bounding over to instantly indulge. 20 minutes later, Shay was staring at the crematorium flames as they engulfed what was left of the body that had been on the gurney, thinking back to how she'd ended up with a scaly fiend in her care. 2 years ago, Shay had been hiking in the Swiss Alps when a freak snowstorm hit, forcing her into a cave where, along the ground, it was instantly obvious there were a bunch of fossils. Shay was drawn into the depths of the cave, where eventually she found a large egg-shaped object. Assuming it was a fossil as well, she picked it up, thinking it would make a great addition to her home. She placed it in her backpack, and off she went. Once at home, Shay put the egg on her windowsill, in direct sunlight, while she searched for someone to appraise it. Until, that is, it cracked open, exposing a small lizard-looking creature with little bat-like wings. Sure, she could have called some fancy scientist to evaluate it, take it away, pay her a buttload of cash. But was that what would really happen? Who was to say the government wouldn't get involved, sending their men in black to toss both the creature as well as herself into the back of a van, causing Shay to disappear from existence? Shay thus kept the creature, but with keeping it came challenges, namely feeding it. At first, basic meat from the store sufficed to quell its appetite, but soon it was far too expensive. Luckily, Shay owned a funeral home, with a mortuary and a crematorium in the basement. Bodies became a great source of food. Became being the key word here. As of late, it was getting harder and harder to keep the creature full, especially as it continued to grow. What happens when I can't feed it anymore? Well, that does it for tonight's tale, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. And I hope you don't have too many nightmares from that. Sweet dreams.